I want to welcome everybody to our main meeting of our Polk County Health and Human Services Committee. Has everybody got an agenda or need one or anything?
We'll share.
Okay, yeah. First of all, I think before we get into approving the agenda, I want to welcome the new people on the county board. I think you're going to be a great asset. What I've kind of done, we're going to have lecture topics. For 6 on the agenda, but I want to welcome everybody. We basically go by the Robert's Rules of Order, but we're kind of like a family atmosphere and kind of informal at times. And because if anybody's got anything to contribute, that's why we're here. So first of all, let's go around the room and introduce, I'll just let you introduce ourselves. I'm John Bottompride. I've been chair for a while. And here's our Corp Council. We want to go from here.
Sure. So I'm Aaliyah Malone. I was not at the last county board meeting. I was just watching from afar. And so for those of you who haven't met yet, nice to meet you. And I can't wait to get to know you better.
And we also have she's our head Corp Council, and she also has
Right, and one of the reasons why it's important for us to attend these meetings, our office handles all of the mental commitments for Polk County, all of the guardianships, protected places, along with, child welfare cases. So we're heavily invested with Tanya's department.
I'm Ben Stellon, County Administrator.
Andy Brown, Unity School District, Elementary School Council.
And River, also Unity School District.
You want, I didn't, we got a sheriff's sale out there. I didn't.
Andy Brown, Unity Elementary School Counselor.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you.
And Sam Rivers is also at Unity.
I am Kathy Gingras, Business and Operations Director with Community Services.
We have to leave it open
Just a crack.
Maybe leave it open halfway. Yeah. But maybe leave it open a crack if there's something, I don't know if it can be angled slightly.
Angle slightly.
Angled slightly. So there's a little.
Sorry to interrupt.
Just put like a foot in the
It's the
door.
open meetings all we have to have. At least one. Could we just put an outdoor in there? Could we go real old
Or put a chair.
No, I'm not.
Okay, Sabrina, I think you're next. Our
Shabana.
Shabana, excuse
Well,
me.
she read it up there. You're right.
Shabana, I'm the deputy county clerk. I take the minutes and send out the agendas for this meeting and a couple other ones.
My turn.
Yeah.
Morning, my name is Tim Anderson. I'm the Polk County planner.
I'm Jay Luke.
Awesome. Jay is our new county chair, and he'll be introducing the election in a little bit.
Good morning, I'm Bob Kazmersky, the Environmental Services Director.
I'm Ryan Wood, District Forest Supervisor.
Tanya Eichel, Community Services Director.
Lisa Lasser, behavioral health director. Jean Schultz, public health director.
Barbara McAfee, District 7.
Amy Milton, District 10.
I'm Miriam August, and I'm also observing.
I'm Marty Elias. I'm the position representative on the County Board of Health and Human Services.
Just for a note, the makeup of our committee is we have a doctor, we have 4 people at large, a doctor and a nurse, Dr. Lagas, Rita McKee.
Are they on virtually? Rita and Sabrina?
Sabrina is.
Okay. Sabrina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Sabrina Meadow. I am on the the Health and Human Services Board as a citizen member, and I am a family nurse practitioner, so also in the medical field.
And And no Rita yet. Okay. Sometimes she's late.
So I think that completes our circle, and Tanya is our director. I don't know if everybody's met, so Tanya, do you want to say a few things as our director?
Well, we're just really looking forward to the new board members and welcoming you guys. And next month we'll have an orientation where we go through all of our departments, so you can learn a little bit more in depth than the county board meeting where we had the elevator speech of what we did. So that'll start at 8:30 next month, and lots of learning. We'll also have a packet for you, so you have a reference point.
So the June meeting will be at 8:30,
Yes,
and then we'll carry on our regular meeting.
starting at 10, the formal HHS
So there'll be
committee.
a
So orientation.
between-
8:30
For you
to 10.
new people or anybody that's interested, there's a little form here that tells all the functions. There's a lot of functions outside our regular board. The first page is standing committees, and then there's all the other adjacent, like ARC, CCC, IDPAC, Carnell, all the other parts. Veterans Committee, Fair Society, Economic Development. So make sure that everybody has a copy of this, and it gives you a little better understanding of our, we are the biggest part of the budget in Polk County with our child support and all the other functions. So, yeah. So everybody has an agenda, a motion to approve the agenda. If you so wish.
Motion to approve agenda.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? We have a discussion on each motion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Approval of minutes of the March 8th, 2022 meeting. Any questions or anything on the March minutes or approval?
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second it.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion on the March minutes? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion approved. Disclosure of committee members' conflicts of interest. That's a customary thing that's been on the agenda. So if anybody would know of anything that would be a conflict of interest, they'd have to abstain from, just raise your hand. Pretty much self-explanatory. Same thing with number 6, receptive information from supervisors not seated. Don't think we have anybody here outside of our committee that are on it. Well, Dr. J, yeah. Public comment. Did you have anything, Jay? I'll introduce you in a minute. And public comments, anybody on the hearing none, we'll close the public comment section. Recognition of appreciation of Dr. Lagas in the retirement of St. Croix Valley. Give us a little bit of history. I think between the pioneers that started it, it seemed to be the Regals. It seemed to be the Regals and Dr. Lagas, correct?
So when I came to St. Croix Falls in 1966, Jake Regal had retired. Fred Regal was still practicing. He was the oldest physician in our group, 46 years old. And I was really impressed with the clinic in terms that they believed in continuing medical education and made sure that we were on the top of the game. And when the boards came around for a family practice, Fred Regal and Dean Erickson were the first two to get their boards in 1970.
So where did you graduate from medical school?
I graduated from University of Minnesota Medical School.
Where was your hometown?
Hutchinson, Minnesota.
Hutchinson.
Yeah. So-
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, so I was actually number 7 position because Leo Nelson had been drafted into the United States Army. And my parking tag at the clinic still is 0077.
Were you a physician at one time as a general practitioner? or-
Yeah, so I was always a family physician. I took my boards and you had to have 300 hours of CME credit to take your board. And so I accomplished that by going to Mayo Clinic meetings and I took my boards at 75 with same time as Leo Nelson had come back from Vietnam. And he took the boards. We had to fly out to Denver to take our boards.
So actually, how many years as a practitioner?
Almost 56.
Wow. Well, the boss lady.
How did you know?
Well, she's been my super supporter for 60 years.
College,
She
Longer
is
than that.
is that where you met, was in college or hometown or whatever?
at our hometown and through college. So yeah, about 1960 we started going together, and so we've been married now.
Well, I can tell you, we're awful darn proud of you. We went around the table and introduced everybody, and so now that you're here.
I'm sorry, I went to the other building, I should have known.
Oh.
But, yes, I'm Brenda McKee, and I'm a retired nurse practitioner. I'm still an active RN. And I worked for 45 years, so.
How many years down on Mayo and Rochester?
I was down at Mayo 10 years and with Health Partners 25 and various hospitals the other 10.
I'll tell you what, I think we're awful darn lucky to have people with experience and everything on the committee. So,
On the topic of Arnie, I can't let this opportunity go by. I don't know if you guys know this about him, but he's been a long time, I've idolized his skiing ability. So this man has skied not hundreds of kilometers, thousands of kilometers in maybe 3 continents. He's only recently stopped doing the Berkey, which is 55 kilometers.
That's a good
And
one.
now he does the short one, which is 30 almost kilometers. And he does both skate and classic. So that's a level of athleticism that not every skier achieves, to be able to do both of those disciplines. And then his lovely wife will go around to Norway. Oh, you want us to go to Norway and ski? We'll go to Norway and ski. And so this man is an amazing skier, and I've always looked up to him as a fellow skier, that he is the cat's meow when skiing. So.
Okay, the next one, I guess, is
Can we just go back, Chair, to Dr. Lagus? I have been digging, trying to find out how long you've been on this board, because I know it's been a very long time. My sources back on the other side of the street are saying back to 2000, but it might be before that.
Well, I was on the board when Bev Larson was the health commissioner for about 2 years. And then I got a note, I think in 1999, that and then I came off the board for several years, and then 1999 I got a note saying they were looking for somebody to take the spot again, and so I've been on the board continually now for 23 years.
Amazing. Thank you. And you do wish to continue, correct, for another?
Like we're getting it in writing.
Yes, we did get that. And he's also volunteering to be our medical director for the public health department. So we're in the works for that. So we appreciate that.
Thank my wife for that.
Self-preservation, right?
you never did serve as a coordinator with Dr. Simonson, did you? I know you did some work.
I was the deputy court
You were a deputy.
for John Simon.
When you came to St. Croix Falls, did you operate out of a big house like?
No, the house had been torn down.
Okay.
So the house has been burned out.
I think, number 8, and Jade, did you want to take over this part as, I'll step down as the chair, should I call for nominations or?
Well, you can go ahead and call for them.
That's what we did on public, protection. Okay, we'll open it up for nominations, appointment of committee chairperson and the vice chair. And we'll open it up for nominations for chairperson of our committee. So
Denise Lellier Gray, I'd like to nominate Amy Nelson.
Sure. Second.
I guess we don't need a second, but that's fine. Amy's been nominated
I'll nominate Don Bonneprice.
and I've been nominated. Any further nominations? Any further nominations? Any, hearing none, a third time, I'll make nominations be closed. And how do we want to do this? Do we want to have a ballot or Amy, what do you, or Tanya, what do you suggest, Julie?
Well, it's up to you guys, I think, however you would like to, up to the committee members.
We could do a paper ballot.
I think a paper ballot is always good. So there'll be the 4 people on the committee voting and the 4 people at large.
Yeah, let's do.
Bob Kazmersky and Jade, you want to act as the clerks and so that Tanya
Let's use this.
That's right, yeah. Person who counts for those who matters.
Close it to my school meeting.
Jade, you want to go around and help her collect it? Tally the votes.
You can just hold them and I'll.
You taking it?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, this will be an honest invitation.
Oh, yeah. You count.
This is so exciting.
And we got one on.
So while they're doing that, let's move on with the agenda. Let's move on with number 9. Sam Rivers regarding our mental health systems within our school. We have some Unity people here and we welcome you. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
From Sabrina.
You want to maybe go over in the center there a little bit?
Sure, and I will
Johnny B.
make sure that a copy of these go out.
Amy.
I feel like we should have the Jeopardy theme song playing in the background. Oh, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Sam Rivers. I work at Unity School District. This year I'm working K-12 as a Native American coordinator. And I'm here with Andy Brown, who's our school counselor for the elementary. And these are, this presentation was put together just to help you understand a little bit of the mental health supports that we do have in public schools, just since we work together so much and our programs need to kind of zipper together. That way you'll know what we're doing, so that will help you hopefully in your endeavors as well. If you wanna, thank you. So this is just so you can, in case you're not familiar with all the schools in Polk County, these are the public schools that we're talking about. And we sent out like a survey of sorts for the counselors to fill in information, and the information we gathered from that is what we're basing this presentation on today. So in public schools, we have a lot of mental health supports that go out to everybody. And you find that just with things like, in 2014, the county really went to trauma-informed care, and I was trained in trauma-informed practices. And then Andy was, and then the two of us trained the staff at Unity and similarly in other schools. And that worked well because the county and the schools were kind of doing the same things with regards to, not looking at a kid and going, what's wrong with you? Instead it's what happened to you? And then that invites the conversation where they'll start to say, well, here's how my night went, or, my puppy died this morning, or whatever it is that you can kind of start to. We find that works for probably 85% of the students. That's all, just those kind of simple supports is all that they need to help them get through a school day. Another 10% might need something extra. So, there's different screenings you can do just to see if you can get them in with, if they need some mental health counseling. And we have counseling in the school, so they can do something like that. Another 5% might need more of a level like Northwest Passage, or they need some type of support. So we tried to make sure that all together we can hit everybody at whatever is the level that they need. All right, next slide. Thanks.
May I ask a question? What's Northwest Passage?
That is there's
a residential or just a day treatment center for kids that are having behavioral problems, mental health problems. And so they work on it at a level deeper than we can at the school. So they don't focus on academics very much. They might have an hour a day of instruction, and then the rest of the time is group work, counseling. Sometimes they'll bring the parents in and do counseling as a family.
And where's the location?
They have satellites all over. I think they have
one in Amory.
There's one in Frederick, there's a couple up at Webster.
The main hub is in, I worked in Webster for a year before I became a certified teacher in Wisconsin. So in Frederick, it's kind of like the hub where there's assessment. So kids will go there initially and kind of go through the programming there to see what their needs are. And then sometimes they'll stay at Frederick, and then sometimes they'll go to different places. Like Webster is boys only. And there's 3 different houses where the boys stay, and then there's the schoolhouse and then a gym. So they try to structure it as much as they can like a normal school day, but it's kind of hard when you've got 20 different kids that range in age from 13 to 18. So you're conducting one science class, but you're doing it for all those different ages and things like that. So they try to, like, where they talk about the targeted supports, that's where they go for like the very targeted.
And students from all over the state and even out of state.
Yeah, a lot out of state.
Thanks so much for that contribution, and that's a nice thing. Anybody that can add something. Well, thank you.
Glad you're here. So next slide here. I would say just around the time that King Confer brought this to the county back in the day and got everybody going on it, we started to have this tremendous increase in kids with behavioral problems, real extreme behavioral problems. All of my associates, the other counselors in the other 8 schools had the same exact thing at the same exact time. And we kind of kicked around what it was all about. I think we landed on something to do with the development of when the iPhone dropped. And I'm dead serious. And a lot of it was just distracted moms not bonding with their kids, or distracted dads not bonding with their kids. And the kids really lacked the ability to regulate their emotions. So they were all over the place, throwing chairs, tipping desks over, screaming. These were things we hadn't seen ever before at a level that we had never seen before. And so we're all pulling our hair out, wondering where this came from and what we can do about it, because we weren't really set up for it. And so the DPI, big ships take a long time to turn, but after a couple of years, DPI came out with this framework here, and you can kind of see the different areas. I'm not going to read every single one of them, but I think the continuum of supports on the left side, just being able to meet every kid where they are, lower need kids 85% all the way to the 5%. Public schools are meant to be a place for everyone. And so we need to be able to provide those types of services or contract out. And we've sent kids and paid for it to Northwest Passage for mental health assessments and things like that. We provided transportation recently to those types of appointments if parents weren't able to do that, just to make sure that kids are getting what they need. And then as a part of that, also brought in mental health therapy to the school district. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Collaboration, I think everybody needs to be on board from our bus drivers to our kitchen people to our custodians to the teachers, so that we're all kind of understanding kids from the same direction and what their needs are, and just being sensitive because in the older days, you know, there was more of a punitive aspect to our discipline policies, and that just didn't work as far as kids that have experienced trauma, because you're just giving them more stress, and that doesn't really help. That just makes it get triggered more. And then collecting of data. We've also, about the same time, something that came across the United States called Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports, PBIS. And that is a framework that the entire school rides upon. That pyramid that they had before, that's called a multi-tiered system of support. And the PBIS ensures that kids are instructed on what the expectations are, because a lot of kids really relate to structure and direction and practicing those things rather than just be good. That doesn't mean anything. That's just a concept. It's an abstract concept. So if you can say, this is what you should do when you're sitting in a class, you look at me, you sit like this, your 4 legs of your chair on the floor. If you have a question, you do this. And we just practice those things throughout the year. We do it for the bus, we do it for the cafeteria, we do it for the playground, and the classroom and the hallways. And so we really hammer on those, and just that introduction of instruction on the structure of the school and how it works has really helped the behaviors come along. I've been at Unity, this is my 24th year, and our fighting and violence and everything like that has just taken a nosedive since we've done PBS. I'm not saying it's all gone, but I'm saying that this stuff really works. And then you tie it in with the understanding of kids through the trauma-informed lens, and it really makes a big difference. And kids relate to that because they know they did something wrong, and they come in, they're terrified of what's going to happen to them. And you sit down and you say, how are you feeling? Are you okay? Did you have a tough night last night? And they just start crying, and then they share what's on their mind instead of like, okay, now I got another problem to deal with, this big person. Okay, next slide, please.
Is this all, excuse me,
Yes, sir.
is this all state funded or do we have some federal?
The PBIS, the districts pay for on their own, and the DPI stuff, they have a giant resource library of videos and training information. And actually some of the stuff has become mandatory for school districts to watch. And so they're incredibly exciting. You can just imagine if DPI makes it, it's gonna be riveting. They always have the slowest speaker who wants to make sure that you hear every word, that enunciates their words very clearly.
But to your credit, it's at the district level, like the funding. They have to decide what they're gonna do and how they're gonna pay.
And each school decides how much investment they're going to make in this, depending on how important they feel that it is. And lucky for us, at least speaking for our own district, Unity early on put a whole ton of money into training for PBIS and a whole ton of money into sending me and Sam to trainings all over the state to pick up this information and bring it back. So we've been really blessed.
So it's basically locally funded per district, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
I did just want to interject because we're from the schools, our acronyms might have the same letters as yours, but might mean completely a different thing. So your very last slide on in your handout is just a list of some acronyms in case we keep saying something and you're like, what was that again? I don't remember what that is. So that's there for so you can refer to it as needed.
Thank you. So on this slide, it's we surveyed the 8 districts earlier in the winter, just to ask them what they had in place for these types of things. And this is a giant list of what is there. SEL is one of those 3-letter acronyms that she was talking about, social emotional learning, which basically teaching kids how to relate to each other, understanding their own emotions, understanding how to regulate their emotions, which is just a life skill thing that kids need to figure out. a lot of kids come in, like I said, unable to regulate their emotions, and we just need to teach them. It's a skill that can be learned and taught. So that's what SEL is. There's peer support, mentorship, kinship is an awesome program that's in all the schools in the county. All
And
schools.
it's different than county.
No, well, it's different in the sense that the mentors are high school students, not adults. So we pair high school students that are background checked and trained with elementary students. They meet once a week for half an hour in the library, typically, sometimes in the playground or in the gym, and shoot hoops, hang out and just talk. And it's a really highlight for those little kids to be able to meet with their mentor. The traditional kinship matches adults with kids, but we don't have adults come into the school. Thank you for pointing out that. Then we have physical therapy. We have a school social worker at Unity, other schools. I'm not sure who said, also said they do. You can just, I'm not gonna read the list to you there, but, and then mental health, we've got the therapy there, and some other schools have that too. I think all schools except Amory have that. They're working on getting it. They've been a little bit leery, but they're kind of working through that right now as we speak. Yeah, that's that one. Next, universal sports. Okay, the bottom of the pyramid. So the 85% of the kids get SEL curriculum. So in most cases, it's going to be me and my friends that are the elementary school counselors and middle school counselors delivering lessons in class. Our school 2 years ago adopted a kind of a universal one that the teachers teach every single day. And so they're working on that. And then I go in and I go in every other week for half an hour in each classroom. Suicide training, how to understand when kids have warning signs of suicide. So this is question, persuade, and refer. So if a kid is talking to a peer, the peer has been trained in this, and they're able to help support that student who's feeling really badly and go tell somebody and get some help for them. Close Gap is an online, we have one-to-one computers down to first grade now. And so those kids go on their iPads in the elementary school and they answer a questionnaire each morning if they choose. And it just says, how you feeling? Do you have energy? Did you eat breakfast? If they say sad or not feeling so good or angry, it'll say, would you like to talk to an adult? And then this all gets emailed to me and the principal and our social worker and their classroom teacher. In the elementary, the classroom teacher will pull them over, ask them if there's anything I can help you with. Sometimes it's something very simple. Sometimes they say, I'd really like to talk to Mr. Brown. And then they come down and talk to me. And so we have, like today, we had 96 kids respond. We have second through fourth grade in the elementary doing this. Middle school level, it's at will, and high school level, it's at will. So the numbers kind of go down as they go up. But what we found is that this is a really great way where a kid doesn't have to raise their hand and ask their teacher because they're really struggling. They can just hit a button on the computer and somebody will come down and whisper in there, hey, do you want to come and talk to me? And then they come down and talk. We also understand that the school's climate is really important for behavior, attendance, all those things. So here's PBIS again, positive behavioral intervention support that we put a lot of work into making school a positive place. So this morning I was making announcements about our giant end of the year carnival that we're going to have, and we do celebrations throughout the year, movie days and things like that. Bar, building assets, and
Reducing risk.
reducing risk. Thank you. This is in St. Croix Falls. This is a kind of a giant canned program that they were lucky enough to be pilots of. If they were to have purchased it, it would have cost the district $54,000 to incorporate this. And it consists of students, they keep very close data on attendance and academics, and then groups of teachers meet on those students very early in the morning before school starts, and they develop plans for the students. And then student leadership opportunities like student council. We have my daughter, Maggie, is a junior this year, and she had heard of a program called Students Offering Support, SOS. And so she's working with our social worker and the high school principal to get that SOS, a peer support system, in place for the high school next year. So that's really exciting. And then these are universal, so that means everybody can access them. So we have a sensory room, a calm down corner is put in place in each of the elementary rooms. It's a little area over in the corner, a quiet spot with some little fidget toys where they can go if they're having a tough time, need to pull it back together. We have the in-school therapy, and then school counselors do support groups. And that goes up to the high school in a lot of cases. All right, next slide, please. Support staff, so these are just, the extras. Brett passed the school teacher, school teacher used to have to wear all these hats themselves, but now we have school counselors. Every school in the county has at least, well, Luck has 2, but everybody else, Frederick has 2, everybody else has 3 or more. School nurse available in most of the schools. 3 of the schools has social worker. Or maybe, no, we're the only one. I think it's just 3 respondents and they were from our school that said that. Yeah. So we have a social worker. The other schools are all jealous. Thank you, Polk County, for the SRO, liaison officer, and then we have Sam as our awesome Native American coordinator who just put on the most amazing powwow on Friday last week. So our students are really lucky to have her, and it's really a blessing because the connections that she has, the relationships that she has in the Native community really help us maintain that positive school climate. And we struggle and work, and every day is a new one to try and make our school everybody's school and everybody reflected in our school.
And a little bit similar to how this meeting is, you've got representatives from lots of different areas in the county. Those that prior list or anything that you see here on behind the scenes, we have like a pupil services team that we meet. So we've got all the different levels of supports that we meet at least quarterly, but sometimes once a month. It just depends what we've got going on. And just make sure that we're all on the same page with each other. If we're seeing the same high flyer coming in, that we all are coordinating our support for individual students. So some of the things that are going on behind the scenes, the crisis response teams, that is if there's an individual with severe needs in the moment, there are certain staff that will be immediately dispatched to help in whatever capacity they're trained in to help. Also, it might be that, maybe somebody lost a student at one of the schools, in an accident that happened. I think that was last year at St. Clair Falls. Well, some of our supports from our school then will go help their school. So we'll also, support each other with by sending our trained staff around. And you probably are familiar with some of these positions with coordinators and navigators and school psychologists. These are just people in addition to the teachers and the aides and the custodians and bus drivers. Bus drivers are remarkably under acknowledged or whatever as being the huge support that they are. I remember one year I did just had my kids write thank yous. I said, I just want you to write 4 thank yous. It could be to anybody in the school, and then we'll deliver them. And it can be for anything. So from kindergarten, I was teaching 8th grade at the time. And I had a lot for bus drivers. And one of them said, wrote that even though you're not my bus driver, you drove by me fishing on the bridge by the mill pond every day, saw me and brought me a new fishing pole. And I'll never forget that. And it was like, and he said, I said, explain what happened. He said, well, the bus, he just pulled over in with that parking area. And he brought me over a pole and a little tackle box. And just, I thought that is like the coolest bus driver story ever. Not even his own bus driver. So anyways, these are all the people behind the scenes that coordinate for supports for our kids. And if you wanna, oh yeah, thank you. So sometimes we just wanted to kind of explain how like some of the things work when you're in a district. If you're the teacher and you need to introduce a new lesson, but kids are spiraling out because of whatever might have happened at their home or on the playground just now, or in their friend group, it makes it really hard to get that lesson across if you've got 2 or 3 kids. So this is why by having supports like these in place or places for these kids to get further help if they need it, actually raises academic scores too. So they're all tied in together because you can't learn if all you're thinking about is this one thing that's really just bugging you and you can't even engage in any lesson. Or now you'll start, poking at vents because, that's something to do, anything to keep your mind off of what you're trying to push down or whatever. So by allowing all these different mental health supports, we're actually able to achieve higher levels of academics in our schools as well. So that's some of the tools we give to students. Now Andy will talk just for a brief second about what we give for adults as well.
Yeah, Jennifer Griggs-Anders from the Mental Health Task Force. We were kicking around ideas when she first started, and she had done parent universities down Chippewa Falls, and we had done some up here too, but not to the level that she had at Chippewa Falls, where she was working in the school down there. And so the idea is that each school would host a parent university, all of the 8 schools. It would be one in the fall, one in the spring for 4 years until all schools had them come through, and then it would start over again. And so we started in the fall in November and did one, and then Emory just did one. And then these are the different organizations that we're presenting there. Caring is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that's a child abuse committee that Sam and I both serve on. And so there was a lot of great nutrition, behavior, how to handle these tough things that kids throw at you, how to save money, things like that. So the parents really related to that. And then the next one is going to be in the fall in Frederick. Next one. There's a program that's put out by the state that is called Mental Health First Aid. So a lot of teachers want to be helpful, but they don't necessarily know exactly what to do or what to say when they see something happening. And so there's this training program. Chris Crow, who's a principal at Cameron at an alternative school, is one of the presenters. He's also a parent at Unity. He came in with a partner and did this presentation for our staff. It's a 6-hour, all day long presentation. It goes through all the basics of these mental health issues that you might see. What are the markers or warning signs that you might see? What are some things that you can do to help those students right off the bat, kind of that first aid, first responder kind of thing. And so this is available. It costs not that much money to bring them in. So each school would be able to afford this if they wanted to. And then the next one is just the acronyms. So you can take a look at that on your slide. I won't read those to you. And then we're able to answer any questions that you guys have. Yes.
Question. So 2 questions. One sort of, I think I can fill in the pieces about the district's role, but how can we get this more countywide? And then the other question is, what's the response you're getting from the teachers? I would think they might really love this because of the behavioral piece.
Yeah, they love it.
They feel like they have some skills to deal with it, right?
They get skills, they get a toolbox of how to create that structure in your classroom, because on the PBIS website, there are many, many templates you can download and use. There's even a whole behavioral response toolkit. So on this pbisworld.com, you can type in kid keeps lying, kid keeps stealing, anything like that. And it'll give you 100 different ways to deal with that type of thing in a positive way. And the teachers, it puts control and power back in the classroom. Whereas before it was, you did this naughty thing, go see the principal. Now that it isn't necessarily the principal. A lot of what the principal did, and Bill was awesome at this, was that discussion that you have with the kids and trying to get them to know that you care about them, that you want to see them do well, and that this is impeding their progress. And now that that's kind of shifted a little bit back into the classroom where the teacher sits down when they have a second with that child and has the same type of conversation. So a lot of times with Close Gap, which I was talking about, the computer thing that they type in, the teacher is solving about 70% of those problems. And then I'm doing 30% of those problems, or one of those other support people is doing some of those problems. Some of the students would rather speak with a woman. So we have Ms. Rachel, our social worker, or we have a school psychologist who's a woman that might handle some of those other.
Anybody else have any questions?
These questions too on the teacher side of it. This isn't like the fun and positive side of PBIS or anything, but teachers like it a lot because it gives you a framework in which when parents get involved, you can have something concrete to reference rather than just talking about like anecdotal things that have happened. So if I've got a student whose behavior is repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated, if I'm correctly using the system as a teacher, then I've got this tracking system where I can say like, you know, let's look back at everything. It's not just this one instance that you are mad about in this moment. It's a pattern of behavior, and that's what we're talking about. So it gives you something solid to lean on rather than a flimsy conversation.
Is there anything else you'd like to add with your work in the program before we?
No, I talk a lot as it is. So.
I have a question concerning the supports in place. You had 10 respondees. And I'm just looking at the PBIS, sounds like a meal ticket when you're talking about your trends. So why are there, okay, so I don't care why, right? There's only 6. Is this schools responding?
Yes.
I'm concerned about the 4 that aren't.
Well, we had 4 that didn't respond, or not 4, we had 6 schools out of the 8 respond. So some of the schools are not represented, some of the schools of the 8 are not represented here. So if it says 6 have PBIS, I think almost everybody has PBIS.
Yeah, because they might have just had one counselor respond for their district or whatever.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I get it.
So at the very end of the bar, that's how many people said that they had it, but sometimes we had 3 people, like our district had 3 people respond to it. So it's a little confusing.
So Andy, do you have a feel for how we could goose this to get it countywide? Because didn't this kind of, I mean, we have Bill, sort of, you kind of helped for some, did you help with? How did this get sparked, and can we spark it in the rest of the county?
I think it's rolling. I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think the biggest thing that we heard.
Countywide involvement.
Yeah, the biggest thing that we heard from this, one of the questions on there was what could the county do to be helpful? And just about everybody said more mental health therapists in the schools. Everybody is struggling. We have these huge waiting lists of kids that want to do it. We have the parents love it because they don't have to come and take a half a day off of work. And then once a week that, you know, a lot of people get fired for doing that. So it's very convenient. And so what we're looking at, and some of the other schools, Chris Crow is guiding these discussions because he's at the state level for the mental health stuff in schools, is doing more with less. Like we have this many counselors and we're always asking for more, but we're not going to get more. And so how do we take those and, like, instead of having this one kid that's been in therapy in school for 3 straight years, and there's this giant waiting list, how could we maybe redo that? So that's kind of the next level that we're looking at. More therapists would also be.
Bill, I'm sure you've been in on the pilot basics of this. You got some comments?
No, I do.
You always got comments.
First of all, I want to thank both Andy and Sam. When this question first came up and being the educational rep, they asked me, you know, what are you doing in schools? It's not what I'm doing in schools. It's what they're doing in schools. And this program has blossomed. These 2 are, you know, train the trainers here. These are the 2 professionals in the area that will go out and do those trainings for other staff. I want to thank both of you from the bottom of my heart. I passed this on to you, especially Andy here, in trying to get this surveyed out to the 8 schools. And that was lots of work. We chatted several times, upfront and personal. And then when I'd get an email from him, I'd say, not today, I'm not going out to school because he's busy. And then having Sam come in and have that connection with the Native American students. And of course, her background and your background, Sam, would you kind of just say what your degrees are in so they know?
Yeah, well, my undergrad's in law, criminology, and defense.
So yeah, so she's got an excellent background here.
Wow.
Coming in to mental health and being a professional educator and a teacher. And Andy, I can't say enough, and I know he's busy. He has a son that graduates this year. And so I tried to back off from him a little bit, but in coordinating this and getting this information out, then being kind enough to come to the CJCC meeting and present, and then having them come here and present. You know, that's time away from school, but I greatly appreciate that. I owe you both, but don't collect yet.
Thank you. I'm gonna get back to number 8. Yeah, we have to elect the vice chair yet.
Yeah, do we want to do the
Wanna do the
chair
chair?
first or and have the chair
Give
take?
give us the results of the chair and then we'll call for nomination. But
The results for the paper ballots was 6 for Amy Middleton and 3 for John Bonifay.
okay. Amy, I'll call for nomination for vice chair and finish this.
I would nominate John for vice chair.
Any more nominations? Any more nominations? Any more nominations? Hearing none, I guess we'll be closed and I'll accept the vice chair and I'll turn it over to Amy.
Okay. So first things first, there's coffee and treats before you guys leave. You want to take coffee and things?
First action is chair.
First action is about food.
Hospitality.
And if anybody wants to grab food, we don't want to take those back. So, okay. Let's hear, this must be you, Tim, update on public transportation study.
Yep, that's me.
And can you just give us a little background? Is this what former supervisor Richard got kind of going?
I believe, yeah, along with John Bonifay, I think, if I have my history correct, yeah. This was an idea that's been in the works for a little while. So we all recognize that there are some transportation needs here in the county. Specifically today, we've got a lot of inflation, crazy gas prices, that kind of stuff in existence. And we also have heard from business community that they have some challenges getting workers to and from work, especially for these entry-level jobs and that kind of thing. Transportation and employees not showing up to work has been a repeated thing that we've heard from a lot of different businesses here in the county. Same thing goes for medical appointments and getting prescriptions and that kind of thing for people in the county. And then just the general trips to and from getting things at the store, shopping, that kind of stuff. I think we all kind of recognize that we're a fairly rural county. We also have, spread out communities here and some areas where we only have certain businesses or certain types of features in different communities. So getting people to and from that stuff is a challenge. I think we recognize too that in more urbanized areas, it's a little easier to do this type of thing. We have a few successful ideas for related to transit here in the state. One that we're looking at pretty firmly with this process is up in the Chequamegon Bay area by Ashland. That's been a successful, I think it's called BART, the Bay Area Rural Transit. Kind of runs from the Red Cliff tribe up north of Bayfield all the way back down through Washburn, Bayfield, Ashland, and all the way over to Odina for the Bad River tribe. That's been in existence. I was at school up there back in the 90s, so it's been in existence even since before then. So yeah, with the idea that came from a couple of supervisors and the groundswell of information we've heard about the need, we decided that we should pursue this. And it was brought up as a topic for consideration in the budget process last year, and the board approved moving forward. The study is going to cost about $20,000. The county is contributing 15 grand to it. And our partners for this study are the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission out of Eau Claire. They are a quasi-governmental agency, and they have staff of planners that we worked with my entire time here in the 15 years that I've been here. They're located all throughout the state, but they're going to be our partners, and they have several transportation specific planners on staff that will be working with us for this study. The study is going to be about a year long, 12 to 13 months. It's kicking off in a couple of weeks. We have an advisory committee that's been assembled for this. Barb, you're part of that, as well as Tanya, and we have Laura and Cheryl from ADRC. They'll be on that advisory committee. We also are getting a couple of business representatives, one from Polaris and one from Schaefer Manufacturing. We have a couple representatives from the medical community with Tinker Regional Medical Center. I've tried many times in the last few weeks to try to get a hold of somebody at the tribe. Hopefully we can work with them as a partner. Regardless, we'll try and get them involved even in the public information section, public input section for open houses. And that. So trying to get a representative group to be the advisory committee for this process. As I mentioned, we're gonna have several public input opportunities for this as well. More than likely open house style, so we'll try and get some feedback on the demand, the need out there from the general population. And then use a couple of sessions to also review some of the goals and objectives, kind of the draft plan when we get further along. The meeting with the advisory committee is going to be kicking off in the next 2 weeks. So that's where kind of the year-long process will start off in the next 2 weeks. Things that the study is going to look at, the likely service level needs here in the county and exploring opportunities to meet those needs. Ridership estimates for those different alternatives, cost estimates, and possible funding sources. I was on a webinar last week for kind of the implementation side of this. So after a study's done, part of the new transportation and infrastructure funds that came from the federal government, there was $300 million available for this kind of thing. So those kind of funding opportunities hopefully will still be in existence as we go forward, but I checked to make sure that this kind of study wasn't available for it, which it isn't, but the implementation side. And then, of course, we're looking at the feasibility of the different alternatives, and then we would select preferred alternative to explore. The final study will be reviewed by you as a committee and the county board, and that's kind of the overall view of this study. You guys have any questions for me?
On your advisory committee, have you thought about, for example, like Cobussum?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's one I didn't recognize when we were talking here. We have 2 different transportation providers. Cobussum is one of them. That's on the committee.
I can list off.
Just a question, do we have any citizen members, like individuals who may use this transport system?
Not at this time. So we were targeting to look at the open house, get that information.
What else?
Open houses.
Oh,
that
open
would be part of it.
For the study, is there any plan to look at why that need exists? Like, so recognizing that the need is there, people aren't getting work, people aren't getting necessary, medical appointments and things like that. Does it just start with the fact that the problem exists, or is there an element to looking at, why the need for transportation exists in a pretty easily travelable area?
Yeah, I think the main focus of the study will be how to address the issue once it's already in existence. Obviously, we can look at that through different lenses, but the focus of this is to address the issue that's out there.
I have a question. How do you plan, you said you're gonna do open houses, but how do you address people trying to get to open houses if transportation is an
That's a very
issue?
good question.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Typically, what we'll do is put an ad in the paper and let them know if they have a transportation barrier to call our office, and we will coordinate transportation for them.
Will any of those be virtual also, Zoomable?
Yeah, that's one of the options.
So is there gonna be a good baseline? Like what are we off, what is the current status?
Yeah, that's one of the things that they'll grab is current demographics and trends and kind of where things are at right now, and then look at how we can build off of that or how we can adjust things in the future.
You mean current state as in what transportation is currently available?
Yep. Yeah. What's available? I mean, where is it working? Where do we need more?
Yeah, obviously, we don't have any official publicly transportation funded options in the county right now, but there's some private options, right? So those will be listed, and having Cobussum as one of the partners. And who's the other? Can't remember what.
Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel.
That's the Medicaid broker for the state. We also have the Economic Development Director invited, Terry Howard. So he's, got a good grasp on everything in the county as far as from the business end of it. If you want the list, I can email that out to the committee.
So is this gonna be outside, like public health transportation that we're doing for the VA and the?
Right, so there are some existing transportation options in the county for veterans travel, medical travel. Most of that is done through the Aging and Disability Resource Center. So they're at the table, they'll be able to speak to that end of it. We can speak somewhat to the end of the VAO, the Medicaid transportation, but then I think it's also identifying if there's barriers for people knowing about the service that's available, how do we get them connected? but then also what are the other needs, and that's what the study will determine.
And needs to add to that, ARDCs at our last board meeting, we allocated $106,000 to buy a van. That will, yeah, so to add to our Polk County fleet. Well, it won't be Polk County, it'll be ADRCs, but
Okay, Burnett and the tribe for ADRC.
any other questions?
Well, I think there are, I'm trying to think which organization is doing, taking people to doctor's appointments,
Mayo for Medicaid, you mean?
Medicaid and others.
Yeah. Mayo and Aging and Disability Resource Center would be the two primaries in the county.
I have a question. Would you, in your open houses or in your surveying, look at how willing people are to pay something for this?
Sure, yeah.
Because to get a ride, I mean, many people would be willing to pay some now. Yeah.
Right, yeah, I think that's included in the funding discussion. So obviously, the ridership, the fees that would be paid by those riders plus other sources.
I think interfaith caregivers
Yes.
is doing some thing people to.
There's another private one too, because my dad drove for Endeavors for a little bit and then transferred to another private provider. And I
Handy-
can't.
is it
I can't
Handy
remember the name. What is it?
Handy lift?
Possibly.
Well, we had some staffing firms that used to bring employees to work.
Any other questions? Thanks, Tim.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Hey. Are you, who's doing our legislative? Oh, Bob? No. We have a legislative report?
Well, if anybody had been to a legislative event, this is their opportunity to report out.
Oh, okay. John, did you have anything on that legislative? Did you do anything?
We had a meeting last Tuesday as a representative to the Wisconsin Counties Association. We had a meeting last Tuesday at Hayward, and the district there, I think probably, I don't have the list with me. I think we have 7 or 8, I'm sure 7 districts in the county or in the state. And our Northwest district was Polk, Burnett, and so forth. So each district elects 2 people that makes up the Wisconsin County Association Board of Directors. And we elected Mr. Taylor. He's a longtime head of the Indian organization at Hurdle, Don Taylor. And Jim, forget his last name, a gentleman from Burnett County. So there are 2 voting directors of the Wisconsin County Association. I know them both. They're very personal. They'll do a good job for us.
Anything else? Anything else? So we will identify for next, because we are going to have the orientation first. And then we'll have a full meeting at 10.
You'll have your work plan. If nothing else comes up, we will plan to do the orientation. Everybody's encouraged to come to that at 8:30. Followed by the regular meeting in which we'll have the annual reports of the Community Services Division. We do have a copy of our annual reports on the table, so please review and bring questions back. But also Golden Age Manor, Veteran Services, and Child Support will give their annual reports to the committee. We'll also have medical examiner report. We'll have John Denny's come in and talk about what's happening in the medical examiner's office. Again, the legislative event report, and then we should have a preliminary end of year for 2021 financial report. The auditors are here right now, so hopefully we'll have some preliminary data for you guys on how we end up.
Does anybody have any topics that we want to add to that robust list for our next meeting?
May I ask a question? Oh,
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Can you give us the status of what is the COVID situation?
The COVID, yes. Jean, do you want to? I didn't bring it.
yep, there we go.
So since we last met, we did switch, the CDC switched to community levels. So if you need more information, definitely go check it out. And just let you know, we did bump up from low to medium because our cases are slowly creeping back up. We have, for the month of April, we had a total of 200 cases of COVID, positive COVID cases. Right now for May, we're already at 95. So just to keep that in mind, we had 75 positive cases in the last week for May. Our testing also has been creeping up a little bit. We still offer free testing here at the county. In April, we did 178 tests, same as March, which is definitely decreased from January, where we did over 1,400 tests. Our vaccinations, we did offer our first or our second booster dose for those who are eligible. We did about over 200 of those doses in the last 3 weeks. And we're still continuing to encourage people to get vaccinated. And like I said, we are seeing a slight bump in numbers, and that's a trend throughout the state. So it's just not something localized. You can see in this map that there's yellow popping up. So just keep an eye and remind people to be mindful that if you are sick, please stay home and get tested, or get tested and stay home, and then encourage vaccination. Go ahead.
Two things. That the tests that we got from the government, do you see people, how do you see that influencing the number of tests that are being done and the number of cases that are being reported? That's my first.
So it's underreporting, because if you have a home test, they are not required to report to the local public health department. So we do not know about those cases, and since they don't get reported, we do not know if they're positive or not. So these numbers are probably below what we're looking at. We do have antigen and PCR testing at the county, so you can get your test results within 10 minutes. And then we also do a second swab for that PCR, which is like the gold standard. So that goes out to a lab. So we have, the county purchased our own antigen test just based on the need, and our PCR tests are provided by the state.
Okay. I suspect that because I do personally know two of my children right now are dealing with it. Not in this county. But something else that came up along information lines is the CDC was basically screaming because doctors were not being told about the positive tests and were not being allowed to then issue the antivirals that are available to everybody now for positive cases in the, I don't know, I think it's 48 to 72 hours. So that is I'm most concerned with. So as soon as the kids pop positive, I said, go to the doctor and get the antiviral. So they went to their doctor, and the doctor had no clue about the antiviral. So that was another issue that are we doing any pushes to the?
So I just learned that Western Wisconsin Health does have a test to treat for COVID. So you have to get tested by them. So you go to Western Wisconsin, it's on their website. I'm trying to get a flyer so we can promote Western Wisconsin Health. They'll test you, and if you meet, they'll do a brief survey. If you meet the criteria, they'll prescribe the antivirals. Public health, that's not necessarily our role that I would like us to get into, but also encouraging that if you would like them, you have to get tested by that provider. So it's that just reminding to get tested again to say I'm interested in the antivirals. So that's how we can also get that information out. But once I learned that last week, Monday, that Western Wisconsin was doing that. So I'm in the process to start posting that so people know that they can, again, they have to drive there, but they can same day test to treat.
Where is that?
I believe it's in, no, not New Richmond, I believe Baldwin. Off of I-94, they have that Western Wisconsin Health.
Can this be, can you put an article in the Intercounty Leader and some of the other local papers?
That is the plan. We're going to boost it on social media and put it in the papers. And I also wanted to connect with ADRC and all of our other partners so that we can get the message out.
To the care providers too.
Yes.
Seemed to be a big issue because the CDC was yelling, but yet they went to their doctors and their doctor's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
And then the other big update that the state, originally there was a small number of pharmacies provided in this program. But there has been news released that there's been 400 more pharmacy added statewide. That was also announced on the same Monday, Paul. So I have to just digest that information to share with the public and get that. I don't know, I haven't specifically looked in our area to see if there's any more. But my understanding is that you have to get tested by them so they can treat you. But just making sure that we have those written down so people know what to expect before they go.
Is there any way to get test the treat into Polk County somewhere?
I do want to reach out to see which pharmacies, maybe Chet has it, but also working with our hospital partners to see what, if we test here at the county, how can we refer it back forward? So that way, kind of that nice handoff to say they just tested positive here. Here's their survey. If they meet this criteria, can you help prescribe that? So it's more of that,
I think we
like,
should put this on the next agenda.
Yeah.
This topic isn't on the agenda. You're not making any decisions, which is fine, but just you're clear of open meetings law issues. I apologize. for
Okay, so let's
interrupting, 'cause it's a
let's
very
do an
valuable
update on
discussion.
test to treat for the next.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Because I've been hearing in the grapevine that we have increasing cases in Polk County. And I think that most of the population does not know that. I mean, we still have people wear a mask even at this meeting, and also at whenever I go to Marketplace or Walmart, I still wear my mask. Because I'm old. I really don't want to get COVID. I think that the risks of the vaccine are very small compared to what you can get as terms of long-term COVID. And so I think that it's super important that we try to advise our families and friends to protect themselves and get their boosters or get their second booster.
Okay, so and then if you can also give us a feel for who has the viral in.
Yep, I do plan on, this is part of our outreach, is to create like a chart, kind of like giving people like, this is, I also want to do this for COVID shots, like who has what. So even though it's on the internet, but making it a user-friendly guide.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you. I just looked up the test to treat and St. Croix's listed on it, Regional Medical Center. So there are places in Polk County.
St. Croix
it sounds like.
Regional?
It's
Yeah.
based on their website, you can type in your zip code and it tells.
That makes sense.
Well, you're retired.
I'm retired.
I
I better call Carol Larson.
Good idea.
It just says, it says you can find the COVID-19 medication and I put in Balsam Lake zip code and St. Croix, Amory, Osceola. But I don't know what their protocol is for prescribing info. That's a different thing.
Okay, well, we're gonna know that next month.
But
Thanks, Jen,
oral,
for doing that.
yeah.
Are we done? Any other questions? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll say that.
Oh. Perfect, you got that, Shivana? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I know. My mask on.